So there's a tremendous amount of value that working with an agency brings to the table. You work with a good agency that is very much connected to you and your business, and you work with them, and you're going to get a lot of value from that.
Your weekly digital marketing trends with industry trend-setting guests. Powered by your digital marketing pioneers, Site Strategics. You're listening and watching Edge of the Web. Hear and see more at edgeofthewebradio.com. Now, here's your host, Aaron Sparks.
This is Edge of the Web Radio, episode 370. Thanks for joining us. I'm your host, Aaron Sparks. Every week, we bring you amazing guests to chat with about trending digital marketing tactics that affect your bottom line. We unpack a key marketing concept. And if you could be in a digital marketing agency or part of an in-house group of marketers for a corporation or even a freelancer, this show is for you. So if you haven't come across this, please go check us out over at edgeofthewebradio.com. We've been doing the show for actually over 9 years. Our 10th anniversary is going to be February in 2021. That's going to be fantastic. We've been doing this for a bit here, and we've been talking to some fantastic guests from around the planet. The reason we do this is a twofold. One, we want to make sure that we're bringing to our audience the cutting edge tactics and concepts around digital marketing. But on top of it, we are also a bit self-serving because we have to educate our agency here on a regular basis and come across some of the best trending tactics to be able to use for our own clients. So the title sponsor of Edge of the Web is Site Strategics, and that's our parent company. So we're an agile digital marketing firm focused on technical SEO, search engine marketing, search engine optimization, social media marketing and management as well as website development focused on conversion rate optimization. So if you're interested in what we can do for you in that space, simply give us a call over at 877-SEO for Web or 877-736-4932. You can find all of our podcasts over on any of the podcast aggregators. We're certainly on iTunes, Google Play, but we're also on Stitcher, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Spotify, TuneIn. And remember, we're also doing 2 podcasts a week. So we do our interview podcast as well as our News of the Week podcast. So check them both out because we're always trying to bring you fresh information that you can use for your digital marketing success. All right. With that, I do have a cohort in crime here. I want to introduce Jacob Mann. He's the studio creative director.
Hello.
Hello, sir.
I'm here.
You're mighty orange today.
I kind of am. That's just how it happened.
I don't play orange. I don't do orange.
I kind of match the lights a little bit in there, but I'm not in that room, so it doesn't matter.
It really doesn't, does it?
No.
Thanks for the remote support there. So you're actually going to be on vacation here soon.
Yeah, I'm going to take next week off. We're going to do a family vacation, and we're going to Maine.
Cool.
And got a house there that we're going to stay in for a week and stay away from everybody else and just the family. But
fantastic.
So,
do you have internet there?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
So I can reach you there?
No, I don't have internet.
Yeah, you do. I got it on recording, and you can't edit it out. Oh, yes, you can.
Nobody knows. Nobody knows what parts I do and don't edit out. No, we'll have internet there. It'll be fun.
Cool.
The part I'm not looking forward to is either tonight or tomorrow. I have to take a COVID test. You have to do that before you go into Maine, and so I'm gonna have that thing jammed up my nose. They're gonna scrape my brain and see if it's there. So. Oh
my gosh. Well. Obviously, we've been operating the studio with best practices, and you've been sealing yourself into the back office as well.
Is this an argument for my brain being there?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool. All right, that's good to know.
Well, we wish you all the luck in the world and safe flights, and we'll be able to take a week off of our recording here. But make sure that you stay safe and don't bring anything back from Maine, except for lobsters.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
I'll get right on that. I'm sure they travel well in airplanes.
They don't actually. If you foil line Katie's purse, right?
Just carry on.
Just carry on.
Can you bring lobster claws through TSA?
I think they're considered a weapon. Probably are. All right. Hey, we want to let you know who's coming up on the show. We're going to be talking to Will Critchlow very soon here, as well as Dixon Jones. We're going to be unpacking a lot of intermediate and hopefully some advanced schema applications. Check out some of the recent shows here. We talked to Tim Schmoyer about YouTube algorithm changes. John Mueller Mueller, Gary Each. We had Michael King of iPool Rank on the show here just as of late. So if you're interested in some of those shows, go over to edgeofthewebradio.com. You can see all of the content there, the show page, plus all the transcripts, the videos, and much more there. So over at edgeofthewebradio.com, make sure that you actually set your reminders on YouTube so you can grab a hold of this video whenever we get live or drop it into our box. All right, so check out all the information, all the bonus information that we also have with the news podcast that we have linked to this podcast. So we covered a number of different things, including some of the Facebook Connect VR announcements that they had. So evidently they're going to be rolling out the new version of Google Glass. So check out that news podcast as well. But for right now, let's get all that aside and let's talk to this week's featured guest.
Now it's time for Edge of the Web featured interview with Paul Shapiro, Global Director of Technical SEO at Condé Nast.
All right, so Paul Shapiro is here in the house, and we really appreciate him joining us today. He's the Global Director of Technical SEO at Condé Nast. Paul likes to dabble in other areas of digital marketing, especially social media. He co-runs a Reddit thread of Big SEO on Reddit, known for their industry AMAs. He's also an author at Search Engine Land. He's also a founder of Online Geniuses, a Slack channel that's fantastic for the digital marketing community. He's a programmer, and he's also very fond of horror movies and board games. In fact, he actually operates a board game blog. So, Paul, before I get there, because that's very, very interesting, give us your backstory, your history, and actually, before anything else, welcome back to the show. You were here 3 years ago.
Yeah, it's been a whole 3 years. I'm excited to be back.
Thank you. Well, what is 3 years in kind of the digital marketing life cycle? It's got to be longer than dog years, right?
It feels like a long time. We'll put it that way.
Especially this year. This one's been excruciating, but we really do appreciate you coming back. Last time we were on the show, we were exploring AMP. It was fresh and new and right off the Google boat. And how's AMP faring with you nowadays?
Yeah, it's so funny. The AMP was brand new then, and I was doing a lot with AMP, trying to figure it out. And then I did a bunch with AMP, and it sort of fizzled out. And I hadn't touched it in probably a year and a half, 2 years. And I've since moved in-house. I'm at Condé Nast. I was agency side before that. And Condé Nast is a publisher, and we deal a lot with AMP. So I've especially dealing with technical SEO, leading technical SEO for Condé. Mm-hmm. AMP's been a big part of what I've been doing, especially with Web Vitals, the Web Vitals announcement.
Yeah.
That's a big part of it as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely, you might say. Oh, God, I did that. All right, Paul, give us your history. Lead us down the path of technical SEO, because you're a huge clarion call for deep knowledge inside of custom programming, Python, and the like. How'd you get where you are in your career?
Yeah, no, when I started in SEO, that was just sort of what I gravitated towards. I had a background in web design and development, and then I liked marketing, learned about SEO, naturally went towards the more technical side of things, and that's what I've been doing for years, and I still love it. There's so much more to learn and things to unpack and so much to do. And when I started, really there was not, at least when I started, I don't know about prior, but I feel like there was not that many people talking about those type of things. And now it's real hot. Like everyone's a Python expert. Everyone's programming and developing tools, and it's an exciting time to be a part of that.
It really is. I mean, compared to 10 years ago, where people are marginally understanding how code affects SEO, you have an entire culture right now inside of SEO. They're experimenting, they're testing, they're sharing all their different Python scripts, right? And on top of that, they're deep diving into machine learning too, right?
Yeah, I mean, and machine learning's blowing up, and that's part of it. There's so much of it has become accessible, and the applications are endless. And I don't know, even just talking about it, I'm excited.
All right, so we're gonna unpack that. I have a number of questions on a lot of these fronts, but the most important thing I wanted to bring to you is you watch horror movies, old horror movies on a regular basis. So I gotta ask you, what are your 3 top B-rated horror movies?
Ooh, what is even a B movie? I can't even separate it from what I watch. I'll give you my 3 top horror movies.
All right, great.
All right, so my number 1 is a movie called Possession.
Oh my gosh, yes.
You know it from 81. Sam Neill, and it's a European film, so it's totally like a crazy art house film. Never really made it huge in the US, but it is so crazy, and I absolutely adore it. And it has nothing to do with possession like you think it would. And then I go back to my roots. The way I got into horror really is through like the old school zombie movies. So 1978, Dawn of the Dead.
There you go.
Still very, very fond to me.
We literally have an Evil Dead poster in our house.
I love Evil Dead.
Oh my gosh, that's my eldest son's favorite. Third one, go ahead.
Yeah, third is hard. This is a little obscure. Night of the Demons.
Oh my gosh.
Is it? Did I get that? Is it Lucio Fulci?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh my God, I love it. It's such a that movie's a ride. I love that movie.
That's pretty good. That's some deep cuts right there. So, yeah, I threw in Phantasm. Phantasm, I love
Phantasm.
Oh my God, that was the creepiest bloody thing. That silver orb that was going all over the place. But I mean, is Toxic Avenger an actual B-rated horror movie, or is it?
I don't know if it's a horror movie. It's an awesome movie, though.
It's more camp than anything else, right?
Yeah. All those trauma movies, I happen to
there you
love.
go.
I love them.
All right, so comedy is. I mean, I love unpacking some of the passions of our guests, and that really rang true. So, all right, so let's get back to your profession here, and so you made a big step here back in May. You were 6 years with Catalyst, right?
Yeah. So Catalyst is a Group M search agency. Great agency. Had a great ride there. Worked on some amazing clients, but for a long time I really wanted to move in-house. I wanted to see the other side of the coin, focus on a specific product, and then John Shahada had reached out to me with this role, and I was on board. Absolutely. Amazing brands, obviously, at Condé Nast, working with like Vogue and Wired and
wow,
and really awesome websites that like you and I read, every day. And it's really cool. New Yorker, I love it.
Very
amazing
cool.
brands, yeah.
Very cool. So, I mean, you worked with great brands in the past, like Procter Gamble and CoverGirl and Secret and what have you. But you're now in the publishing space, so there's a whole nother, I guess, level up that you did with this career path. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not the first publisher I've worked with, okay. But it's certainly the one I'm obviously going the deepest with, and I feel like publishing is getting a bad rap. They're obviously dealing with a changing climate between like print and digital. But in terms of like technical problems, you're dealing with this whole wealth and history of incredible content, and there's so many interesting problems to solve and things to figure out and things to do, and it's exciting again.
What type of CMSs are you working on?
Condé runs on a custom CMS.
Got it.
Multiple custom CMSs. That's part of the problems too.
And also the advantage, because you can actually fully deploy custom code for your SEO tactics, as opposed to working inside of some of the more mainstream CMSs where you've got a good deal of limitation. Yeah.
Yeah, and true, that's one of the advantages about in-house as well. There is that level of control that you don't get when you're working with a client. Even we already mentioned this. I do a lot of like custom tool development for the purpose of SEO,
right?
And there were things I just couldn't do. Like I know you're talking to Will and Critchlow, and Will has this awesome A/B testing tool. But I don't need an external A/B testing tool because I can make changes straight in our own custom CMS, and build out our own A/B testing tool in this case.
Right.
That's just something you can't always do if you're agency side, and some in-house teams can't do it as well, which is I totally recommend Will's tool. By the way, I didn't mean to talk down on that. It's an excellent tool.
No worries. Well, I mean, that's the thing is that what I wanted to do is actually explore kind of the transition between an in-house and an agency model, because I mean our listeners fall into both buckets. They're either part of an organization, part of an agency, or they're working inside of a corporation as part of the marketing firm. So our listeners have their own career paths, and there are pros and cons on both sides of the fence. So what are some of your recent experiences doing that transition from the agency to the in-house publishing around? Well, you've kind of moved from agency to agency in a manner of speaking, right?
Yeah. So I was all agency before. I spent a long time with Group M, with Catalyst, and I was at another agency prior to that called Acronym, and I moved around a lot within Group M as well. But yeah, now I'm in-house, and I can't speak to every in-house experience. I have a feeling that many different companies run very, very differently. Absolutely. And I think the fact that Condé Nast has many different brands, in some ways it feels similar to that an agency world that I was previously a part of. And I don't think that's true of every in-house experience.
Right. Usually the case is you're stuck in one brand. I shouldn't say stuck, but you're established in one brand. And part of the benefit of an in-house is that you get really deep knowledge into that particular brand, that particular platform, whatever is moving through the system. And you have a little bit longer lens of what you can affect, as opposed to the agency model where your resources are serving multiple brands at the same time, and you have to be a good deal more prudent on the kind of the deep SEO investment, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So again, it does sort of feel like similar to an agency model at Condé, especially in my role leading up technical. We do have SEOs that sit within individual brands and focus on that. But that's not my role. That being said, there is this really interesting in between. Although I'm sitting across different brands, there's a connection between all those brands. And when we deploy things to like a CMS that affects all the brands, and you can sort of, in some ways, technical SEO is the glue between those brands.
Unpack that for a second. I want to hear.
Well, I mean, yeah. So technical SEO is very much about creating systems and infrastructure and optimizing for search engines with those systems and infrastructure. And although they're different brands, a lot of the things I build for one brand are directly applicable to all of the different publications that Condé Nast operates. The tools we build, I might have one brand in mind, but everyone gets to benefit from that. And same thing with the various analyses. It's very much about technical SEO is inherently about scale, especially in the enterprise, and that's especially true at Condé Nast.
Excellent. So technical SEO is a bit non-denominational, right? It's the platform that we all actually that platform. It's the backdrop of where everything can spring forward, and any type of limitations in technical SEO can certainly impede what what you're attempting to do. And again, with an agency mindset, you certainly can leverage what's learned in one space and be able to move it across all the different brands and all the different executions. So it's a constant incubation of skills and insights. Again, kind of looking at the counter element of just doing in-house on one brand, that is a bit of a challenge, that you don't have that level of experimentation and not only scalability, but being able to see where there are some opportunities for growth in this entire field of different brands. What advice can you give to an in-house that's literally working on one brand, and perhaps they're not in the enterprise space yet, but they want to be? What can you give them as learning guidance of how they can scale up their own skill set?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that everyone deals with, whether you're enterprise or agency, is how much time do you have, how much resources do you actually have, and playing within those boundaries. So if you're within a smaller in-house team, you may have less time or more time, less resources, more resources. I don't know. But consider what you have. I talk a lot about using custom tools, and I love that, but that may not work for you. So think about what you can get out of a pre-built tool, something that you can buy, some sort of SaaS company, and then build upon that, because at the end of the day, your time and resources are the most valuable thing.
Absolutely. And those are one of the challenges inside of an in-house. I mean, it could very well be as frustrating as if you're the doctor, you've got the remedy, but you can't get the patient to take it or afford that remedy. And that's always a challenge, as opposed to an agency environment where you maybe have a little bit more latitude there. But it does have to do about a lot with implementation. It's not enough just to know what needs to be executed on. You got to have that implementation plan, right?
And in some ways, I'm much more connected than I once was to that in-house. It's one of the things I like about it. I'm much more closely tied to implementation. But that is not to say that I have full control of it. I have to do engineering specs. I have to meet with product managers and engineers, and think about business priorities as well. And that has its own set of challenges that, although I wasn't necessarily dealing with that with every agency client, I am. It's similar. It's similar in some ways. Similar. Yeah.
No, I understand. But you're actually almost like you're dealing with almost like a hybrid model, right?
It is. Yeah.
Because you have a number of different in-house SEOs in these different brands, but then on top of that, you're also director across the board here. So you're trying to make sure you instantiate certain types of protocols and initiatives. But you also have some deep divers in each and every one of these brands that know their brand so very much more, right?
Yeah, exactly. I will say this though, and we were talking about it. So technical SEO definitely is the fact that we've decoupled technical from the rest of SEO, and that is not to say that I'm siloed at all. I'm very much connected to the rest of our SEO team. But the fact that I can focus on purely technical, it doesn't feel as if I'm isolated from those brands, because I feel like this glue between them.
Yep. There you go. No, I get the analogy now. Very good. Very good. So, I mean, there's no one right way, but from a enterprise space, would you recommend this type of hybrid scenario where maybe utilizing agencies as well as having an in-house SEO may be a valuable set of resources to be able to have?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think even working at an agency, there's a tremendous amount of value that working with an agency brings to the table. We were just talking about how time and resources are an important part of every organization, and agencies help you manage that. You work with a good agency that is very much connected to you and your business, and you work with them, and you're going to get a lot of value from that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So I want to shift topics on you real quick, Paul. You are a huge advocate of building in-house SEO tools, and your skills are well renowned in the SEO community. So here's the deal. This has to be one of the topics I love to talk about. I don't have your skills, but I certainly have been the purchaser of a number of different software platforms over the years. I mean, I've been doing this for well over 20 years, and there's so many SEO analysis tools that have come and gone, and the challenge is that none of the tools match exactly what you're looking for. There is nothing. I mean, there's some great tools out there. I mean, SEMrush, Cognitive SEO, SpyView, Moz. They all have some great strengths, right? But that's the problem. They all have their own respective strengths, and nobody can afford to go and buy everything. What?
I want to say, when you said a number of software platforms, I feel like it gives the audience the idea that you could like count them on your hands.
Okay.
And I don't think that if we got the whole team together and used all of our fingers and toes, we'd catch them all.
Okay. So is this some sort of intervention, Jacob? Is that what you're saying here?
I think one of my favorite parts about this job is the new tool of the week. That
I hope my accountant's not listening right now. All right, so
there are so many tools.
There are so many tools, but they're all for a specific reason. So here's the problem. I need some help here, Paul, because I mean I'll go after a particular schema validation tool that none of the other platforms have. Well, I mean you need it, right? You got to be able to have it at your disposal, and there's another $30. So give us an idea how we can get past that constant tool addiction. And yes, I mean the first step of coming from an addiction is recognizing that you have a problem. So my name's Aaron Sparks. I've got a SEO tool addiction.
I'm sure there's a tool that can let you know how many tools you have.
God, stop it.
Oh, there absolutely are.
All right, so you I mean you've been doing this for a while. You recognize the limitations of these platforms. They can't customize to everything that you need, but you have to have the insight of what you're really looking for before you can even kind of go into that fracas, right?
Yeah. So I mean, I would not create a tool for the sake of creating the tool. You create a tool because there is a need for something that tool will do. Mm-hmm. All in while taking into consideration what time and resources it takes to make that tool. Does automating something for 3 weeks when you can use an existing tool and do a few things manually, is that really worth it for your business? And it's not simple always to answer that, but
right.
It's something you need to at least think about and ponder. There's I mean, I feel like also it depends on, are you someone with those skill sets, has the time to develop those skill sets? Are you able to hire someone with those skill sets? And those are all things you need to consider. For me, I've been coding for years at this point, and I find it valuable and worthwhile, and it's helped me in many ways, but it's not something you need to do by any means. Mm-hmm. And I just want to acknowledge that that you definitely don't need to code to be a good SEO. But if you take the time to learn it, it will help.
All right. Sidebar right there. You mentioned that you don't need a code to be a good SEO, but do you recommend not coding software, but just understanding code? Does that help in the knowledge of SEO as a practice?
Yeah, absolutely. I especially if you're dealing a lot with technical SEO. I don't even know that people that deal with primarily content need to know all that much, but I think bare minimum know some important HTML tags. You don't even need to know the whole universe of HTML,
sure.
But the meta tags that are very relevant to SEO, how those work, beyond actually knowing like, oh, there's a title tag. Maybe understand that there's a concept of, there's an element and it has a start tag and an end tag, and anything encapsulated within the start and the end constitutes that title tag, having some sort of concept of how that works, understand what CSS is, what it does, and what JavaScript is and what it does. And I think that's a really good start.
Yeah. But,
maybe enough
for the content SEOs in the space, but for the ones that actually are of the technical SEO mad scientist mindset, right? Breaking away from some of the software that are limiting. How would you guide someone who is wanting to find something that these platforms are just not pairing up or showing? How do you jump into that level of analysis, and what should you be prepared for if you're actually going to do some custom software for your SEO analysis?
Yeah, I think the easiest thing to do is to, as you're doing your SEO thing and working with these tools, doing some sort of analysis, trying to, create content, solve a problem, uncover an issue. As you're working with these tools, you're naturally going to be like, man, I wish this had, this little thing. And
absolutely
don't dismiss that thought, right? Write that down, because that's going to become a basis of a tool that you can create. Those little frustrations. I feel like so many times we use tools and we're doing things for our workplace, and we have these little frustrations, and we grow so accustomed to them existing that we forget that they're there. So be present with your work frustrations. Make notes of them.
Absolutely,
because those are little problems that we can solve with tools and other things.
Absolutely. Those are great opportunities to be able to springboard into something completely unique from an analysis. But you do have to have that analysis mindset. You got to know what you're really trying to track and all of the different additional variables that you're trying to. I'm speaking a bit abstractly because it all happens. It's all about whatever the solution is that you're trying to paint a picture of, right? But you got to have to have some level of software engineer mindset whenever you explore into this space. Do you not?
I don't think you do.
Really? Okay.
I mean, if you're actually going to build a tool, you do.
Right.
But I think to sort of unpack those frustrations, you don't need that. You just be like, well, I wish like this, I could compare this with that, and the tool doesn't let me compare these two things. Like, you don't need an engineering mindset to figure out that's a gap, right?
Yeah. But if you're going to try and solve it by yourself, then you
then maybe, yeah.
And that, honestly, in full perspective, these platforms that are there now are very, very responsive to feedback from customers. In fact, it's a constant testing environment, and they're constantly evolving. I think SEMrush is one of the best community learning platforms out there. They are constantly appreciative of the feedback that their community has. So, kudos to them, because that's the best investment of the world. Just learn from your audience and build a better mousetrap, right?
Yeah. I think SEMrush is great. There is sort of not every company though adheres to that. There is this idea, I think like Basecamp's like a huge supporter of this, of like, we like don't listen to our customers, like because that will bog down our engineers, and people don't know, like, have any sense of how we should prioritize things. And so like I think not every company is as open to that feedback. Fortunately, within the SEO community, many are.
Very good. No, actually, and that's two different channels to row through. All right, so that aside, because we all have our peccadillos on software platforms that are out there, and what an amazing opportunity to be able to build your own analysis tools. Talking about analysis, I'm going to steer over to kind of the last topic I want to talk to you about, and this one I held back until the very end, right? So let's talk about machine learning for a brief moment. And I can't really do brief, but I've been eager to speak to you about that. Machine learning and SEO. All right. Guide us through a bit of your journeys in AI and machine learning and how you've been able to learn how to optimize towards that degree.
Yeah, sure. Probably like a few years ago now, I was already developing a lot of tools, playing a lot with automation, and I ended up in a role within Group M that was situated actually within the data science team. So a lot of the work that I was doing was very much data oriented. So doing new analyses, finding those little golden nuggets in that whole like world of data that we have as digital marketers, statistics, all sorts of things. And I was doing a lot of data analysis, and eventually you hit a wall with data analysis, especially with the type of data that we're dealing with within SEO. And you can only do so much without like really, really, really complicated math degree and background. And machine learning sort of came into prominence, became much more accessible. And machine learning in some ways solves a lot of that. These tools, you don't need the math background anymore, because you have engineers and mathematicians creating the models, and then someone goes and creates like a Python library that works with that model. You need to understand how the basic concept of the model works and when you might apply it, but you don't really need to know the nitty-gritty math of how to implement that to do quite a bit. So a little bit of a timing thing, how I got into this. Machine learning became really big, really accessible. I was working primarily with data as part of my job function. So we started doing a lot of it. We talk about breaking things down into steps as you're doing like software development. So like if you're creating a tool that, this is just a random example, if you need to crawl a website, how do you break down that process of crawling? Okay, so first you need to visit a starting page, right? And then you need some mechanism to discover all the different links on that individual page. You need to add that to some sort of queuing system, systematically go through those links and do the same thing over and over again, and pull out some different aspects of it into an index and into a database, right? So when you start thinking about these things very process oriented, you start seeing things that decisions you might make as an individual, as a human being, become a little bit difficult to achieve. There's these decisions that we all make that are kind of like simple, but hard to translate into computer code.
Absolutely.
And as you're building out these processes, you're like, well, okay, maybe machine learning is the solution to those decisions. And it becomes really, really valuable for actually creating things like that. Natural language processing is very much machine learning driven nowadays. It used to be more about more math based and heuristics based.
Right.
Has since for a while now, it is more about machine learning. So you apply a lot of simple text concepts that like text analytics was based in many, many years ago. And you start applying different models to it, and then you get this whole world of different insights, understanding. You get into this thing of like natural language generation, which everyone loves to talk about.
Oh yeah. Well, you're learning more and more of intent and personalization as opposed to the math at just the numbers of phrases on a page. Now you're training at a higher level an understanding of pattern recognition and things like that. That's where we are now with this new machine learning evolution, correct?
Yeah, and it's great. We can process more data more quickly, and look at it from in different ways because of that speed that we've achieved. And you talk about different aspects that are going into the model because we're able to process things faster and more easily. So there's so many developments, especially in NLP, natural language processing, and it's a really something that's particularly relevant to SEO because we deal with keyword data and content, text content.
Yep. But we have to still kind of separate the wheat from the chaff. Is that you got to write useful content, intent-oriented content. The era of we know this, but the era of keyword jamming into a particular page of content is gone. Right. We've got to roll not only intent but content that is valuable to the search, and understanding that this is going to be associated in a number of different ways, not only from natural language processing, but it's going to have relevancy to other pieces of content on your site, and you have to create that entity relationship for the engines to now understand. I mean, because they're primed to do that. Correct?
Yeah, and and NLP is one such tool to help with that, help us understand intent, whether it be for human or machine, and help us improve.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess the question is, are we as a society, and this is a whole other philosophical perspective, are we ready to be able to train these machines? Because when it comes down to it, you still have to guide what you're trying to analyze, and you have to put these rules together. You have to, I mean, you're in this next level of analyses, right, that we weren't in before, and we have to have an unbiased approach to how we train this machine learning. Otherwise, it's garbage in, garbage out, for lack of a better euphemism.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've seen where we've been a little bit more relaxed on that part, things go very wrong.
Yeah.
Comes to mind is that the Microsoft chatbot from a few years ago, where it got very racist and was spewing out garbage, and they had to shut it down. And that's not the first incident where that happened.
Right.
But also in terms of like quality, that's also an important thing. Because actually, if you've ever played with natural language generation, you see how poor the quality can be. Like it strings some words together and it sort of makes sense, but not really.
Yeah, you can see the gaps in understanding, right. But you start using that as fodder to be able to to fill in the gaps and fill in. So by and large, how does an SEO write to the machine learning search engine that we're looking in 2020 and beyond? Some pro tips to be able to help guide them. We always say write good content. Yeah, that's the basis. But some key guidance that you might be able to gin up our way.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, we don't write to the machine. We still definitely write to the person, to the user. But very simple thing you can do, for instance, is look at what is ranking, right? This is a very simple application, very simple thing you could do is, look at the top 10 results for a keyword and break down what is the text within those 10 pages or so. And is there a gap between, this isn't even natural language processing or machine learning. This is simpler than that. What keywords are missing? What concepts are missing from your page compared to those top 10 listings? And you can then leverage NLP algorithms, models, to sort of get a little bit deeper into that. But that's just one very simple way you could incorporate these concepts.
Would you recommend what tools would you recommend to be able to do that type of gap analysis? Because it's truly going to be looking at the structure of content, on all the competing pages, and key
Yeah,
key
yeah.
topics of content as opposed to word choice or what have you. Do you have anything top of mind that you'd want to throw our
Yeah.
way?
Yeah. I mean, well, so like I'll talk from like a Python perspective.
Sure.
So you're gonna need something to extract content. So you're gonna need something to do the GET request. So there's a library called requests for the GET request. If you want to get rid of sort of the things like navigation, things that are not core to the main piece of content, there's a library called Goose 3. That's very valuable for simple natural language processing. There is a library called NLTK, which really does quite a bit. Another NLP library that I use is called Spacey.io. Has a little bit more. I use them both for various tasks, and they do some things one does better than the other, and other things the other one does better. You're gonna need probably if you're not doing local rank tracking, you'll need access to ranking data. So you'll have to use something with an API probably to do this systematically. We used to use Stat at Catalyst. You can use SEMrush. We were talking about Nozzle before. You can use Nozzle. Whatever rank tracking tool you want to use, or there's ones that are specific to SERP data as well. Something along the lines of that. And then in terms of machine learning libraries, there's the Hugging Face library, which has some really accessible machine learning tools in it. It's amazing. Some basic machine learning libraries, scikit-learn. It's usually the one you start out with before you start exploring other things. Of course, there's Google's TensorFlow. There's Keras that sort of encapsulates that, and there is the port of Torch to Python, PyTorch.
Oh my Lord.
Yeah, that was a lot. Sorry.
No, it's okay. But I mean, I hope the audience all realize that we just went about 30,000 foot up from this tool set, and we certainly want to give all the links to everything that Paul's referencing in our show notes. So I'll make sure, Jacob, they take a note of that, because we'll pull all that together for that individual that wants to be able to start building their analysis tool. There's a laundry list right there, and boy, I wish I had contextual knowledge to be able to surf with you there, Paul. But sounds like you know your stuff. That's for damn sure.
I realized I went over the deep end.
It's okay. It's okay. I'm sitting on shore going, there's Paul. Oh my Lord, the amount of valuable information in literally one sentence. Well, maybe it was a paragraph, but we'll stay with
run on sentence.
But we're certainly going to put all those resources out there. There's the concept of machine learning, and we're just stepping into this space, right? And there's a whole nother dimension of contextual learning and semantic learning that we're going to be able to leverage to be able to pull that back around to what type of content our users are truly looking for. And on top of that, there's topical references that are constantly changing. Nothing's going to be a constant, and that's part of the learning mechanism as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's seeing how things change, things change over time, in addition to what and how, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Oh, Josh, don't do that to me, man. You're throwing another 5 different variables.
Sorry.
Everybody doing the calculation. We just had a few levels up of permutation there. All right. Stop. Now, I'm going to swing back around. There's so much rich pathways that you could go down from a machine learning channel. What would you recommend as the beginner's guide to understanding what you just laid? You gave us some great Easter eggs to go hunt. Is there a good place to start a machine learning study, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, I've been pretty vocal. A lot of times you're part of a public library. Many public libraries have access to lynda.com.
Sure.
Which is, I don't know why they have two brands now. It's Lynda and LinkedIn Learning, but it's the same thing.
Yep.
And they have like a million. I've taken a million courses on lynda.com, and I find that to be a very valuable resource for many things, not specific to machine learning. There is what is the there's the I'm blanking right now. There's a website that does machine learning. It's sort of like you have a company that lists the machine learning, Kaggle, machine learning problems to solve, and the community can help solve it. They have a course on machine learning that's very good that I would recommend.
Cool.
And there's others, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Well, we appreciate that, and we're certainly going to put this in the show notes. I'm going to have to pivot around and ask you. Honestly, it's been fantastic talking to you today. It's great to be able to catch up with you. We certainly wish you the best in your industry. You're doing a fantastic job out there, and thank you for continually jumping into social and let us know what's happening in not only your space, but in the machine learning space and other enterprise level insights that you're providing. I do have to ask you right now, what bugs you about your industry?
Oh, I hate to say it's
do it, man.
SEO is all about Google.
Yep.
And at the same time, that's what bugs me, right? We're beholden to this Google, right? To these search engines, and that's dangerous territory. And I don't love that.
It's all in one space, and we'd love to see a little bit more competitiveness out there. I'll go ahead and throw that in. What are your thoughts about the Apple search engine that we've been hearing about?
Yeah, we'll see. I actually like Apple Maps, but it's come a long way. We'll see.
Alrighty. Well, conversely, what excites you about the industry right now?
Yeah, we touched upon it already a little bit, but when I started, there wasn't that many people doing like Python, working like Python and getting really deep in technical SEO, and we're seeing a lot of that now, and that's exciting.
Absolutely. No, there's more and more code that's being referenced, and again, a good deal of deep collaborative efforts that are happening. So it's neat to be able to see that. I mean, technical SEO is really going through like a renaissance or some sort of revitalization right now, where it was marginalized for years, and thank God for that, because it's the base language of how these bloody pages get found, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we do want to open up one last space to talk about. Let's go into board games, man, because you are so focused there, and I unpacked that, roll the dice, and I wanted to just ask you, what's your favorite board game? I mean, well, before anything else, listeners, you got to understand, he owns over 200 board games, right? And he actually runs a site, Board Game Squad, which is basically a review site, as well as kind of a library and glossary of all things board games. So I know you can't just do one, but what's your top board game right now that you're enjoying?
Okay, so I can do a top game. It is a game called Great Western Trail.
Oh my God!
Yeah, it's awesome. And then there. It's a few years old at this point. And then the same designer came out with a game this year called Maracaibo, and that's the one that I'm currently most into.
Very cool. Very cool. So I got to ask you this. I'm a father of 4 kids, right? And there's such a technical immersion, right? Literally, I'm starting to realize I'm pulling the wet wire out of the back of their skulls. They're plugged in so much. So how do I don't know if you have children. How do we guide them back to these spaces? Because board games are fantastic, man, and it's just like reading. It's just like tapping into that imagination as opposed to having it fed via Oculus 2 or what have you.
Yeah.
How do you get people plugged back into board games?
Well, I think that's one of the reasons why I like them so much, is it gets me out of that. But we're actually really in this renaissance of board games. So these games are really cool. Mm-hmm. So it that kind of helps in itself. There's all sorts of really cool and interesting board games to explore for all ages, people, experiences. And it's when you sit down and play one of these newer style games, mm-hmm. I think that becomes really clear, and people tend to want to play them more.
Absolutely. And every once in a while, a pandemic comes through and forces us all to be in the same room with each other for a while. But I mean, that's good connection material right there. And in an environment where we are continually siloed and pressed away from connections, board games, what a fantastic connection tool. So certainly, any other family games that you'd recommend right now that you've come across in your travels?
Yeah, so family games. There's a game called Quacks of Quedlinburg that I'm quite fond of. Not maybe kids need to read, but for more like a general family game, that's a really great one. For Super Rhino Hero is a lot of fun. That's an all ages type affair.
Okay. My mind's just going, oh, what in the world could that game be? All right.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many.
Cool. So go over to BoardGameSquad.com so you can check that out. And you also have a podcast going as well there as well. So we certainly recommend our listeners check out Paul on BoardGameSquad.com. Any final thoughts for our digital marketing audience, technical SEOs, advanced SEOs, ones that want to get into machine learning? What are your final thought there?
Yeah, don't be afraid by it. Just go for it. I think you'll find that maybe it's not as challenging or as daunting as it may seem from afar. And there are so many amazing members of the SEO community that are willing to help. You just send a message to someone on Twitter, and I do this even, like I need help with something, and such a welcoming, generous community, really.
Absolutely. Well said. All right. Well, thank you so much, Paul, for your time. And we'd love to have you back a little bit less than 3 years. But if we catch up to you 3 years from now, we wish you all the best in the world. And Lord knows what you're going to be creating in your basement over there.
Thank you.
You're more than welcome. All right. Good luck in everything. And be sure to check out all the trending news that we cover with Paul Shapiro and the bonus news podcast episode and bonus YouTube upload as well. It'll probably be out in a couple days here. Follow Paul on his Twitter handle, FightO. LinkedIn, you can find him at Paul N. Shapiro. And also go check out searchwilderness.com, his blog post, as well as BoardGamesSquad.com and this podcast. So don't forget to like and subscribe to edgeofthewebradio.com. And if you're feeling up to it, we'd love for you to drop us a review. We haven't had a review in a while, and we would challenge our Edge audience. If you're listening to this, go over there and let us know how we're doing. How'd you like Paul's episode as well? Thanks to our sponsors, Site Strategics, as well as Ahrefs. Go check out ahrefs.com and sign up for some great data and a great analysis of your SEO content. Be sure to check out all the must-see videos and everything over at edgeofthewebradio.com. Sign up for the newsletter free of charge. We're constantly sending you great information about the guests like Paul that we interview each and every week. So next show, I think we're going to be talking to Will Critchlow. We're going to take a break here for about a week and come back around and start loading up for October and the rest of the year. So if you're interested in being part of the show, let us know over at info@edgeofthewebradio.com, and we'll see what we can do to get you on the schedule. So for all of us over at Edge of the Web and Site Strategics, thanks for listening. Be well, be safe, and do not be a piece of cyber driftwood. We'll talk to you in the future. Bye-bye.